November, and the Swifts were long gone. I returned to Broughton for an interview with Martin's younger brother, the author, William Fiennes. The slow-moving mechanism of my mind had all but seized up in the Swift department, but I'd read both of William's books, The Snow Geese and The Music Room, and both feature Swifts.
Swifts are special to me for so many different reasons. I think partly there's the exhilarating fact of their speed, their evening flights, their Vespers flights, when they gather in these groups and they scream and they fly these circles at such kind of rapidity. I always found that incredibly sort of exciting in just a kinetic way. The sound of their screams, those sort of sweet screams, and the speed, so that you'd actually feel a rush of air as the squad went over your heads. And then to me there was also a kind of emotional wonder to an idea that these birds were so loyal to the same nesting sites. They would come back every year. They were descendants of swifts that had nested in this house generations previously. It was a way back in time. For hundreds of years, swifts had been flying from southeastern Africa and arriving here and nesting here and then going back again. So there was that great sense of rhythm, of a world rhythm happening, the world turning, spinning around the sun, the seasons changing, and the swifts constantly coming back and disappearing again. So there was that sense of novelty, the new arrival, but also a sense of timelessness, that this was a cycle that was going on and had been going on for hundreds of years. So I suppose in the swifts you felt connected to something bigger than you, something longer than a human lifespan. They are, in a way, the purest bird, because they're always in flight, and they sleep on the wing, and they mate on the wing, and they drink on the wing by just swooping down and sipping from the surface of a lake or a river. But then the speed, and something so different to swallows, which have this sort of cotton, silky quality, whereas swifts have those stiff wings and the chip fork tails, and really kind of slice through the air. And I knew stories about other species of swift, like the needle-tailed swifts in Africa, which I think are the fastest of all birds in level flight, and the cloud swifts, which I once saw. I spent a year teaching at a school in Brazil, and I went to the Iguazu Falls in the south of Brazil, and they have the cloud swifts there that soar down alongside the waterfalls, and they nest behind the waterfalls. So as they dive down, they get to their nests by ducking in through the water. And then you think of the young, the fledglings hatching, and then they've got to fly out into the world, and they've got one chance to get out through this curtain of water into the wide open. So for me it's always been an incredibly exciting moment, that moment in May when you hear them before you see them. And I live in London now, but there's still that moment in May when I hear that high scream and something lifts in me, something kind of dilates and goes a bit buoyant in me, and I look up and there are these birds again. And that idea of, you watch them, and as the sky darkens in midsummer, those long evenings, they get gradually higher and higher, flying in these extraordinary kind of circuits, and they go up to the upper regions, the kind of swift region up there, and gradually drift out of sight. I don't quite understand the evolutionary reason for it, why the swifts, especially when the young ones are born, why they gather in these groups and just scream round and round. They're not actually feeding at that time. They just seem to be doing these aeronautics out of some exultation or exhilaration of having wings and being able to fly. And but it is an incredible spectacle. and it's sort of overlooked. You think of the great natural spectacles, and from Britain we would watch wildlife programs about great migrations in the Masai Mara or in the Arctic or whatever, and then on our doorsteps there's this yearly miracle happening, and I find it incredibly moving. And then when I was writing my first book, The Snow Geese, I knew that swifts would be part of it in some way. It's a book a lot about attachment to place and the idea of home and belonging. And that sound and sight of the swifts is one of the things that's the most loudly a marker of home to me. And the sound of swifts will always take me back to this house. The warm, sheltered air on the south side of the ironstone house was full of insects, and in June and July, at dusk, parties of swifts exploited this abundance, breeding birds darting again and again to the eaves, delivering bugs to their nestlings. Rooks were cawing raucously. A light wind swished in the trees like crinoline dresses on a ballroom floor. I heard the back door opening, the bars of 3 bolts slid with known weight and easiness into sockets on the jamb, and saw my father walk out onto the lawn, shirt sleeves rolled up, holding a mug. He stood beside me, and we both looked up. Furious activity in the twilight. 8, 10, 12 swifts were wheeling overhead, black birds racing round and round, their trajectories ornamented with swoops, tilts, rolls, dips, glides, zigzags, and rapid shimmies as individuals diverge from a straight course to take an insect seen to one side. The swifts feinted in one direction, only to curve off in another, 5 or 6 birds appearing suddenly in formation, a squad, their stiff wings held fast in sickle arcs to carve a turn, then beating again to crest the roof slope, tails opening in 2-pronged forks for increased control when manoeuvring, then closing, streamlining the body for fast flight. The swifts flew like blades, birds slicing in and out of the paths of other birds, their shrill, sweet screams intensifying and fading in quick Doppler shifts as they passed overhead, accelerating, tipping, flirting with angles, leaning into banked turns that seemed to scour out the inside of a sphere. Sometimes one swift flew alongside another, their speeds, curves, shimmies and feints matched with unfailing exactitude, as if every movement were plotted by a common whim. Rooks flew west over the house in feeding sorties, heavy black rags adrift in the dim light, their flight sluggish and laboured next to that of the fleet, trim, screaming swifts. My father delighted in his aeronautics. "There's joy in it," he said. To him, the return of the swifts was cordial and fortifying, a sign that the centre was holding, that orbits were regular and true. The arrival of migrants, like an eclipse, was a revelation of planetary motion. The earth had travelled once more round the sun. Seasons were respecting their sequence. Time could be relied upon. Our sense of a place, the character of a place, the experience of a place isn't made up of general, vague quantities. It's made up of lots of particular small things. And if those small particular things start to slide, we might not notice, but before too long the whole character and sense of place and distinctiveness of place will slide. And swifts are just one of those particulars, and I feel we should pay attention to them, of only in as much as we should pay attention to bats and bees and oak trees and people's history and experience and voices, and pay attention to all of those things. But I don't think we should overlook the particulars of our places, because it's the particular things, the small things, that make our places what they are, what makes our localities different from every other locality in the universe.